Indeed, if you're looking for a video to lighten the mood, do not look here, because we're talking about James, Stephanie Sterling, there. We're going to be broaching on a very sad
topic.
An almost depressing
Topic.
Literally sad, made me want to shoot myself.
Yesterday, you said tomorrow, so just do it!
Because we're going to be talking about
James, Stephanie Sterling.
and the terrible woes that have befallen a much cherished household name. And truly no one has been through more than James, Stephanie Sterling. We had Bernie Sanders weigh in, and someone called him ignorant for it, even though what he said was true. We are getting too many Stephanie Sterling videos talking about capitalism. Stephanie Sterling keeps promising that it won't complain about capitalists.
Oh yes, we know for sure
that whenever Stephanie Sterling has said it's committed to something, it absolutely remains committed, right? Kids? Microsoft is going to use its position to f*** big thing, but not me. When asked whether or not my tits are huge, Phil Spencer put it, "That's a woman?" Now there's actually a good reason to go and shoot myself. That'll do, actually, that's good. Thank God. I'm off now.
Kill-tacular.
I knew it, Frit! You took a little sip of some estrogen and now you're one of us! One of us! Well, no, actually.
I'm scaroused.
I lost the bet on stream that if Elden Ring won Game of the Year, I'd have to do one video as Femtanga. So, I made special type assault to pull off an old gender bender, and here we are. Other than being significantly weaker and dumber, it ain't so bad being a woman. Then, I'm quickly reminded there's a chance Jake Tech could hit my DMs with a pic of his fiero, and now I want my balls back.
You're a f***ing disgrace.
Life as a woman is hard, but not as hard as poor Jem Sterling's life. Someone who was once highly viewed and respected by the gaming community for their unfiltered rants against the big evil gaming corporations is now the butt end joke of everything wrong with the current culture.
There are many fair reasons to not want to watch my show or support the channel or whatever. I barely want to do all those things myself. And only the fair reasons are the reasons that so many subscribers went away so fast and so recently. We did at one point wonder if it had anything to do with coming out visibly as trans on the notoriously trans-hostile YouTube.com, but I've been assured by gamers and YouTube commenters the world over that suddenly losing 2,000 subs the exact day I came out and a further 2,000 with every subsequent post is sheer coincidence.
No, I have to pray for this young woman as I read the scripture for her. My daughter, I want to read for you a scripture.
No. That's all we have for you. Good morning. The morning news continues.
The self-righteous attitude that enables Jem to insert their own political views into every single discussion has become almost comical. You sit there watching for about 3 minutes thinking to yourself, okay Jem, we get it, you hate leftists. Oh wait, this isn't a parody of leftism? And you're actually wearing a dog collar too?
America needs to repent for its worship of whiteness.
Anyways, if you've been too busy living life and cherishing each gay moment of it, you might not be caught up with the ABK news, and that's okay. Destin has about 200 videos on it, and I highly recommend you go watch those if you want to be kept up to date, because for this video, it's kind of important as it seems Jim is not entirely caught up, and it shows in the amount of flip-flopping that goes on in this video.
Let us weep this week for Microsoft, my children, for there is perhaps no sorrier set of suffering saints so sad in silent sacrifice.
This isn't funny!
So yeah, Microsoft has been chatting some absolute shit lately, mostly by way of games boss Phil Spencer running his mouth and throwing his company the shittiest little pity party he can.
Alright, we can all agree any company crying and acting pathetic when things don't go their way is incredibly satisfying to watch, especially when it's companies that run the world. Problem here is, Phil Spencer has actually done a pretty good legal job of keeping his goddamn mouth shut. There has been more statements coming from the FTC and Jim Ryan than Microsoft, and each statement has been nothing but bitching and whining. You say Phil Spencer's throwing a pity party, well, Jim Ryan is throwing a pity banquet and inviting the FTC. I get the video subject is Microsoft, but when it involves the Activision merger, we can't ignore Jim Ryan and his cries because they paint a much bigger picture.
There are two broad subjects covered that I'd like to touch on today. The first being Microsoft's pathetic justification for charging $70 for video games and cementing the price point Sony started.
And we are going to skip that one because first off, the chick I got doing voice work for this video has a life and isn't willing to share much of it. And also because I already did a video roasting the shit out of Microsoft and their fanboys over that. Okay, stop clapping and cheering. I get less of a Jim Sterling video is only a good thing, but the shorter the videos, the less ad revenue I get. Why are you still cheering?
Take the cost of living crisis in the UK. Energy companies like BP ramped their prices up to unaffordable levels.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Plunging millions of people into a choice between warmth or poverty, and justified it by saying it's just too expensive to run an energy company, and then they posted record profits. Not revenue, profits. Billions in additional money well beyond operating costs, the majority of which went to a handful of executives. It's an open, evil lie, and in the case of energy companies, it's a lie that will literally lead to thousands of deaths. Also, a small number of already wealthy people can plunder more wealth.
What? Poverty? Electrical companies? Evil rich people? Death? I swear I pressed the skip politics button on this thing. Esta cochinada!
F***ing quiz!
It happens there. It's been happening in games from the beginning, albeit with less lethal results. Mega-rich execs claiming it's expensive to make games while helping themselves to the lion's share of record-shattering profits. And that's the rub. See, Phil Spencer claims something had to give, but not once addressed exactly what the biggest money drain on the company is, chiefly men like him. It's simple math, really. If executives stopped scooping millions of dollars off the top to award themselves, companies would have millions of dollars to invest in operations.
Eat the rich!
Is my skip eat the rich rant button not working too? Goddamn capitalism failing! Holy hell! Imagine sitting through 6 minutes of political rants in the video that's supposed to be talking about video games. How do Jim Sterling fans sit through this every week? Jim couldn't even keep the rant focused on Phil Spencer, the rage against electrical companies and people dying, and the rich getting richer had jack shit to do with Phil Spencer and $70 price hikes? My god. If you actually want to see a proper rant on this, go watch my video instead.
The executive class, people who don't need to draw a single dime due to their existing wealth, are an overwhelming expense that could quite painlessly be cut down.
My God, are you still talking?
Microsoft has spent the better part of the year trying to buy Activision in its continued bid to utterly dominate the market. It's ruthless. It's using wealth to force itself into a position where it can acquire a lot more wealth without competition, where it has so much unchallenged power, it can charge what it wants for products that don't even have to be very good.
Unchallenged? Are we talking about the same company here? The one who's been in the last place for over a decade now? The one that dominates nothing in the gaming industry? If you ask me personally, I think the last thing Microsoft needs is more studios since they hardly do anything with any studio they acquire. They could gobble up Activision and still be in last place, as I fully expect to happen. None of us are eager for Microsoft to grow in power. They're just the only ones with a wallet big enough to buy Activision that isn't Tencent, Apple, or Google. You also have to realize Activision wants to be purchased, and if someone has the money to do it, it won't be anyone you like. Y es la pura verdad.
You know, it's exactly what every company tries to do and has done when it could throughout human history. But if you listen to Phil Spencer, Microsoft are the heroes.
I have never heard Phil Spencer once call Microsoft the heroes of anything. That's loca! All I ever hear is bullshit PR from Phil and Game Pass.
See, Sony doesn't quite like the idea of its biggest rival having control of the biggest third-party IP for consoles, Call of Duty. Understandably so, I'd argue.
Understandably so, I'd argue.
I am sure that some commenters are already proclaiming that I am biased against Microsoft. Yeah.
Hold up. We're supposed to understand Sony's position, but not Microsoft's? Are we forgetting that Sony has paid millions to keep certain Call of Duty content off the Xbox for years, giving them a significant advantage in the console market? You have no problem with Sony fighting hard to keep their anti-consumer practices in place? Because that's exactly what they are doing. So you'd figure with how often Sony has paid to keep content locked away from Xbox for years, Jim would applaud Sony getting what's coming to them, but I guess not.
Sony's been fighting the sale, and just recently the FTC has dramatically walked back its previously apathetic stance toward the situation, suing Microsoft in order to stop its acquisition.
Change their stance? What stance? The merger only ever got to phase 2. Only Brazil ever approved of this purchase. The CMA and FTC never approved any of it. It was heavily scrutinized the minute it was proposed and didn't get to the point of legal action until Sony flew over to privately meet with bureaucrats to put a halt on it. Even after Nintendo and Valve said they have no qualms with it. It's been made clear since the beginning that Sony is heavily favored by the CMA and FTC in this matter, and there's no denying it. Let's also bring up the fact that the whole reason the FTC wanted to sue Microsoft was because they claimed Microsoft had misled them about Bethesda games not leaving PlayStation, when Microsoft never made that commitment to the EU. You'd figure a government body like the FTC would have easily been able to know this never happened, and yet it was random people on the internet who had to correct them on this, which makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is it really just incompetent fools handling this, or is the FTC just reaching for any reason to put a stop to the merger? Either way, when the premise you have to sue Microsoft is built on misinformation, you're going to lose in court, and it makes the entire committee look dysfunctional.
This is huge and hilarious. And I love how Spencer particularly complains about Sony's part in all of this. Sony is the one major opposer to the deal, offered the graphic tee wearing exec. Sony is trying to protect its dominance on the console. The way they grow is by making Xbox smaller.
He's out of line, but he's right.
Oh, come on, Jim. Ponte las pilas. You of all people know Sony has been playing a big role in all of this. You cannot Google this story up without Sony being mentioned in every single article covering it. We know Jim Ryan has personally flown over to the EU to try and put an end to this purchase. No other company other than Sony has whispered in the ears of these regulators. Phil ain't lying. You know it, and I know it.
Yes. Welcome to f***ing capitalism, Mr. Spencer. I just adore it when capitalists complain about capitalists doing capitalism. This is just what corporations, including Microsoft, do. And too many people worked out that the show is about how capitalism is bad. And then, that's when I did too much politics. Repetition is, of course, a big criticism of the show, a genuine and fair reason to unsubscribe if you don't like hearing how capitalism is ruining everything every single week, and who does.
Okay.
And here it comes, the unrelated political tangent that plagues every single Jim video. Yes, of course, let's just go on a random rant about capitalism to absolve Sony of meddling with regulators to obstruct growth and competition. Capitalism is bad, and that's what you get, Phil Spencer. Brilliant, Jim. I'm left speechless with such an amazing rebuttal. Let's just pretend like none of what Phil said there was true, because he's one of them, a capitalist. Normally, I would agree with Jim here that it's amusing to watch corporate goons cry over money, but why are we acting like Sony isn't doing the same here?
The aim is not to compete fairly. Despite what bosses may claim, they don't want a free and open market. Never have. They want the freedom for themselves and restrictions for others. The aim of a corporation is absolutely to protect itself at the expense of everyone and everything else, to make its rivals smaller, to aim for a de facto monopoly so it can do whatever it wants, and the customers have nowhere else to turn to and gotta just accept it.
Okay, I need to be pointed in a direction where Microsoft is doing this by buying Activision, because the insanely generous offers they've handed Sony shows otherwise. First, offering them 3 years to keep COD, then 10 years. And then, they even offered to allow Call of Duty to be on PS Plus. And in an attempt to sit down and discuss more deals with the FTC to cooperate, they were turned down. You can't convince me that this is the actions of a company looking to destroy all competition. Because so far, Microsoft has done everything to ensure their purchase of Activision doesn't put Sony in a position where they have to compete. If a de facto monopoly is what Microsoft is aiming to do, then they're failing miserably. By offering their own competitors 10 years with an IP they bought, they've given Sony a significant advantage to wait out changes in the market and plan ahead and still benefit from revenue generated by Call of Duty.
Microsoft, the company that is currently buying up the biggest studios and publishers to be the most dominant force in the console space, is doing everything it's accusing Sony of. And it knows it.
When has Sony ever put any offer on the table to ensure Xbox doesn't miss out on content? When has any competitor ever been this merciful? Solo Dios!
But of course, that's not what this pity party is about. Phil Spencer knows that Sony is doing what Microsoft would do if it were in the same position, and even then it's a very understandable, logical course of action.
I highly doubt Sony would ever put any deal on the table for Microsoft. Stop!
He knows that his own company grows through the consumption or destruction of its rivals, because if he didn't, he'd fundamentally misunderstand how corporations are designed to work, and it'd be weird if he didn't know this shit. Nah, he knows. He just wants you to not know. To indulge in the console war tribalism that has made this entire industry worse for decades now.
Really? Phil Spencer, the console war guy? The man who called out Crap Gamer and humiliated him for being a console fanboy? If there's anything I can give Phil Spencer credit for, which, to be fair, isn't a very long list, it'd be that he does an excellent job of not flaming console wars. And that's not really asking for much, is it? How is anything Phil stated fuel for console wars?
It's an appeal to the audience, an attempt to make Microsoft look like the scrappy underdog when it is, in actuality, a f***ing Tyranid hive fleet. And nowhere is his hypocritical intellectual dishonesty more apparent than in this quote. Sony is leading the dialogue around why the deal shouldn't go through to protect its dominant position on console, so the thing they grab onto is Call of Duty, the largest console maker in the world, raising an objection about the one franchise that we've said will continue to ship on the platform. It's a deal that benefits customers through choice and access.
Where's the lie, Jim? That's not Microsoft trying to come off as an underdog. That's a cold, hard fact. Sony is the only company that has personally tried to stop this merger. The market leader having to make a case to the FTC while also being the only company to do it is a bad look. To point that out is not asking for pity. It's a factual statement.
Spencer says Sony is the largest console maker in the world, positioning the considerably less rich company as the big bully against the set-upon protagonist. But yeah, that's fucking bullshit.
None of that is bullshit. It's not about making Sony look bigger in the console market, because they factually are. It's about pointing out how the largest company in the gaming market is influencing the FTC into protecting them at the expense of consumers. Many Xbox, PC, and mobile users that could benefit from this merger happening won't, and that's all due to Sony not wanting to lose out on revenue.
Microsoft has the 4th highest brand valuation in the world, behind only Amazon, Google, and Apple. It's got $1 trillion market cap. The presentation of Sony, which is nowhere near that value as the biggest console maker, is disingenuous, deflective shit, meant to obscure the fact that overall, Microsoft has the bigger fiscal dick. And it's a dick that it's been sticking into everything it can grab by the fiscal hips.
Jim, are you forgetting we're talking about the gaming market here? Microsoft is no doubt much larger than Sony, but in the gaming market, they aren't even number 2. And this purchase won't even make a dent or put them any closer to Sony's position. To point out the obvious like this is not deflection, nor disingenuous. It's just the truth. Deflection is doing what you just did. Microsoft's value does not reflect their position in the gaming market, nor their dominance, which says a lot about how poorly managed the Xbox brand is. Sadly, now that I think about it.
None of this is to say that Sony is innocent here.
Hey, I'm Nathan Drake. If you're the adventurous type like me, then get in on the Subway Taste for Adventure, or a chance to win epic trips and exclusive access to Uncharted 3.
Of all the bullshit Sony has done, a Subway commercial is the worst you could find? Really? Are you serious right now? An ad is what you have to compare this to? You want to point out Sony is just as bad by showing Nathan Drake holding a footlong? I don't even know what Jim is trying to say here. Advertising is just as bad as purchasing companies?
No corporation is innocent, and Sony would absolutely do everything Microsoft is doing and more if it could. Indeed, like I said earlier, it was Sony that started the trend of charging $70 for video games.
Wrong!
I can't believe I have to correct you on this, but no, Sony wasn't even the first to do that.
Hiding behind the same flimsy reasoning. Right now, multiple third parties are expressing interest in being bought as their relative executives by a chance at a big fat payday, and the market consolidation that has been the inevitable endgame and ultimate corruption of so many industries is absolutely threatening to hurtle us toward megacorp control of video games, be it Microsoft or Sony or the often forgotten but terrifyingly influential Tencent. All of these companies want to own as much as possible and would own the fucking lot if they could. Because, like I often say, corporations don't just want some of the money. They want all of the money. Always.
My god, Jim, you really phoned this one in, didn't you? The constant flip-flopping of this video has f***ed with my mind more than Whippets and Kratom. I understand the subject is Microsoft and the criticism is at Microsoft, which is fine, but it's done so horribly. Even here at the end, Jim admits not doing enough research.
I only touched on it briefly in the video itself. I will probably have to go and revisit it because it is a big thing.
I understand there's deadlines to meet when it comes to uploads, but would it kill you to just skip out on the topics you don't care for, Jim? Because the end result is a video that never gets any point across and just seems to exist for the purpose of meeting a quota. Neither Sony nor Microsoft is the good or bad guy here, but we can all definitely agree one is the most hypocritical, and it's Sony. Yet Jim tries to spin it the other way. I clicked on this video hoping to get some good jabs at Microsoft, but instead I met with the basic ass bitch's lecture on the evils of capitalism they learned by watching a YouTube video. Look, let's be real here. The FTC is just trying to show us that they aren't completely wasting our tax dollars by pretending to put up a fight against big tech. But we all know this will end with the acquisition going through anyway. And when that does happen and Sony is still #1 in the gaming market, I wonder what the excuses will be then. Overall message I got from this video was, as long as you have an anti-corporate stance, you can talk about anything without doing a lick of research. Because it's easier to play with people's emotions than it is to get them to think. Look at me being the hypocritical one now. Anyways, better end the video now before the estrogen runs out. So you should all like, comment, share, and subscribe if you so
choose to. Well, estrogen wore off. Anyways, yeah, like I said, I'll see you on the next one.
Fritongo sucks ass.